it's almost impossible to be an architect or even an artist without some level of obsession. That you need something that takes over your mind and that a way to understand the world through. And so I think that having an obsession about certain things allows you to have full focus on what those things and how to communicate them to a wider audience. And it becomes very important. And usually the architects or the artists who have no obsessions are the ones that create the worst work, or the worst cities, or the worst objects, or the worst production. That there needs to be something about always that filter that you need to be able to understand the world through. And even the ones where their obsessions sort of collide with one another, that there's sort of almost competition among what those obsessions are, I think it helps the work. It makes it more complex.
Yeah. In terms of your question of our favorite project, I think the industrial forest, of course, comes to mind because it was a real luxury in terms of time. And Mimi Brown, the director of Spring Workshop, has started this, I would say, pretty incredible non-profit art space in Hong Kong, and we're really pleased to be part of that initiative. And I think the reason why we actually love the project is we were given a unlimited time to investigate, experiment, and think about the installation with a blank slate. She just gave us the terrace or a space within the spring to respond to, which allowed us ways of really rethinking our practice. And at the same time, although it's a very conceptual, minimal piece, it responds to so many different audiences, from school children coming in to measure. We would challenge them about the physics or reflectivity. How many bamboo filaments can you count?
In the reflection, to say last NIF day, who was driving on the highway, and we were joking that this piece is really made for him to see every day on his drive to West Kowloon to M+. And when we had invited various different groups, some Japanese friends came and said it reminded them of Japanese gardens. And then the Dutch were responding to it as a Dutch landscape. So we were quite happy that the piece could respond to so many different types of audiences, but at the same time was reduced in a way that it challenged our own perception of what nature could be. I realize a lot of the things I'm obsessed by are things that are very abstract concepts, and that they're not easily categorized as a very direct sort of correlation to an object or to a way of working. But one of the things I often find, either in my own work or in the things that I enjoy reading, there's always something that is not quite right. Meaning, the way that the world unfolds seems to be systematic and understandable, but then from that systematic and understandable vision of the world, there's something that twists or turns how we can interpret it, that space. And I think that the reason that I like or appreciate things that we see in almost everyday life too, things like a reflection, that you catch your eye in a different way, or tell you something that is a likeness of the world, but that the reflection is never pure. I mean, the idea of the reflection is also something that has been a mirror image, and that you have to somehow think about how that reflection becomes real. And it's never these pure, perfect mirrors, or these pure, perfect echo of what we see. It's actually through a bit of a distortion. And not distortion like a fun mirror where it sort of twists the light and twists the image, but distortion in terms of it allows you to perhaps see a detail you might not have seen before. Maybe let's say more of a magnifying glass type of reflection or refraction, or like a telescope. It allows you to either see something so very distant in a new way that becomes more familiar, or to see something that is incredibly familiar, like a bug, or in the case of today, a butterfly, but to examine that butterfly at a different magnification that allows you to have a sense about even the level of detail that goes into the wing that you would never see before. So I think it's something that takes me, it's both familiar, let's say, something that I'm familiar with, and already have an idea that I think a preconception of an idea of what that might be, and then allows me to break from that preconception and somehow just allows me to see something I've never seen before, I guess I'd say. So it's those type of moments I've always followed. I mean, if it's even from a long time, that is those moments that allow you to see something you couldn't normally see in an everyday object.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it's usually obsessions dealing with the particular time, right? So obviously it could be project related on stuff we're working in the studio, or topics that we really want to dig deeper. So for me lately it's also been crowds and logics of crowds and swarming and like even obsessively thinking about masses and what it means for density of people to move in particular flows, and how we're also dictated by circulation and those sort of patterns of daily life. I've always, I think, interested in that kind of logic. And then I suppose the other thing I think maybe is just the idea of how things are created or how things are made. So say we're walking along and we see this amazing weird stone detailing meeting a glass detail or something. I would definitely stop and take a photo of it and be like, oh wow, I've never seen that before. Or even if it's, as we said, like the discovery of this strange mutant bug in our industrial forest, it really makes us stop to think and question. So it's always those moments too, I think, of obsessing about how these surprises really disrupt our daily lives, and therefore that actually becomes a session that you can't actually control, but then you find meaning or value within that. So I think those sort of things.